In this video, I'm going to give you a complete unfiltered opinion regarding the copyright arguments when it comes to AI. This is basically like an AMA of an AI researcher when it comes to this particular topic and fully outlining to you my opinions on this topic. My opinions on this topic boil down to legality and what can be defended from a legal standpoint, and I divorce the moral arguments from that. I understand upfront that people can take multiple different stances on this, and a lot of people disagree with my moral stance on that and my stance overall on this particular topic. My only argument within this is that these arguments are legally defensible. That these AI companies have gone in, they knew up front 100% what they were doing. I have utilized copyrighted data for training of AI models. I 100% knew what I was doing when I have done that. And so have every single one of these companies. So has Meta, so has OpenAI, so has DeepSeek, so has every company involved within this is my argument. That we all know this, and we've all gone in with the same operating assumptions. And I argue that it's 100% legally defensible, and my defense for that is that there is not a singular AI company that has been involved in these lawsuits that have lost any of these lawsuits yet, right? So whether or not you like it, it's legally defensible. And so that's what I'm going to dive into in this video. Why is it legally defensible? How do I reach this conclusion? These AI companies aren't stupid, right? So how does this come about? Let's talk about it. And then so before we do that, this particular video doesn't have a sponsor, so I'll sponsor it for myself. I've created a Discord channel called Rick's AI Cafe. I'll leave a link to it in the description of this video. If you want to dive deeper into these subjects with further discussions, check out Rick's AI Cafe in the description of this video. So with that said, let's talk about this very specifically. So recently, Meta released that they have torrented 81 terabytes of data. 81 terabytes of data. That's a big number if you know what terabytes are, but it's still an arbitrary number, right? So very first thing, let's take this and what does 81 terabytes actually mean? So this is 10 terabytes. So we multiply this times 8 each time, right? So 10 terabytes would be 520 million WhatsApp messages. So we'd be looking at like let's call it 4 billion WhatsApp messages. 6.9 million images uploaded to Instagram. Let's call it 20 million, 21 million images uploaded to Instagram, 28. 6.2 million views of that Shane Long goal on YouTube, 1.4 million songs streamed, 22,000 episodes of Game of Thrones. So then just multiply all of these out times 8. This is the amount of data that Meta has now had to admit that they took from copyright, and this is one database. Let me give you one other source of context here. The entirety of the Library of Congress, every piece of data that is in the Library of Congress, 20 terabytes. So 4 times bigger than the Library of Congress, right? Massive here. So but then, and I just realized I was doing my 4 times multiplications rather than 8 based off of that. So it's even more when you go back to those other numbers, right? And then so diving into this even deeper, the bottom line, we're talking about massive amounts of data, like inhuman amounts of data. And so it's not like, oh, I just accidentally torrented 81 terabytes of data, didn't mean to. So first of all, let's break this down into the scientific argument, right? And then that's the easiest way and the defensible way to break this down. So starting off, my first argument, let's take a look at this case here, right? So this particular case is the Warhol case, and then this is, I think, what a lot of people are hoping is the strongest case against the AI companies in this regard, right? Like a lot of people, I think they see this case and like, oh, this is a silver bullet against AI companies. Let me show you why it's not. Like why I don't like this case is not at all applicable to any of these underlying arguments. So this case is very simple, and I like this picture that they put here, right? So this picture, it all boils down to this image of Prince. And then it's just like all of these variations, like are all of these variations copyrightable in and of themselves? No, because they all rely on that original picture of Prince, right? None of them are altering in any significant way this original picture, and that's the bottom line of the argument. And that's what it all boils down to, right? No matter what else you're doing on top of it, you're still taking this original source and you're not doing anything to the original source. You're just imposing on top of the original source. And then so with that being said, that's a very different process than how neural networks store information. And I want to make this distinction here up front within my argumentation. I don't defend with these arguments all AI for copyright within this. If I were in charge of a diffusion company, I'd be a lot more worried. And I think like you see that right? like the very friend. I mean, it just look at how this honestly plays out realistically, right? And you can see these arguments happening in real time. So like the diffusion companies were the first ones to crack under these copyright arguments, right? Because they have the least weight within this. The diffusion companies are vulnerable to this argument very specifically. Like this is harmful to diffusion, not harmful at all to neural networks. Like neural networks are DGAF, YOLO. Like so why do neural networks YOLO that whole entire argument? So let's use a simple example. Let's say that I have a book. Harry Potter. It's always the one that comes to my mind first, right? So I memorize Harry Potter word for word. Every single word in that book. I read it 1,000 times, and then it's now imprinted into my memory. I have not committed copyright infringement in any way whatsoever just by doing that memorization process, right? By allowing me to view and to read. And then so when in all statutes within this, so first of all, you have to deal, like the first step within this in order to get this data is to scrape the data. And then so scraping the data in and of itself is not illegal under any framework, right? Because I'm just viewing, I'm reading the data. I'm using eyeballs, but I'm in digital eyeballs to view the data. The difference and where the law makes this distinction is if I take that data and then I put it into a database. And this is very important, right? And you can call this a sneaky argument, call it whatever you want, but it's how the law is written, right? So in order to commit copyright infringement, I need to read the data from a website and then plop it directly into a database. Step A to step B, right? That's not what occurs within neural network. So what happens is I take that data and I read that data, and then the very first thing I do is I vectorize that data. So I turn it into just a string of what ends up being arbitrary methods and arbitrary numbers. So the very first thing I do, I'm not taking the picture of Prince, right? I'm taking the picture of Prince and then I'm transforming the original picture of Prince. I'm not laying on top of it. I'm literally transforming the picture. And then so that's step one of the argument as to how this is different, right? That vectorization process, I'm never storing this picture of Prince in the database. I'm storing a vectorized representation, a platonic form, a platonic representation, a reconstruction of Prince, of this picture of Prince, and that is what is made up of my initial weights. So that differentiates this, and that's a very important distinction up front, right? But so that's one degree of major separation. But then I don't only just do that; I separate the degrees even more. So I take those vectors and I'm training then, therefore, the model not on the picture of Prince, but on the representation of the picture of Prince. This is not a picture, right? And then from there, the model doesn't then store the representation of the picture of Prince directly into a database. So that's not what happens there, right? What happens is this gets probabilistically stored across all of the different weights. And then you can see all of these different individual weights and all of these individual different connections. Where does that picture of Prince live? Where does that picture where does the book Harry Potter live? It literally lives in all of these weights distributed across them and spread out in a probabilistic setting, right? And that's the thing. Like, it's not like the there's not like if I point out like some of these lines, like W11, W21, W31, for example, like those lines don't have like the paragraph of Harry Potter. They don't have that picture of Prince literally in them, right? They have probabilistic representations of it. They have numerical weights that are like 0.5, 0.8, 0.1, like, and then like that times 1,000 or 10, like to a degree where it becomes mathematically impossible for my brain to actually calculate the long enough string of numbers and to actually make sense of it for my brain. But then when you construct and you compute that back into the model that actually made that reconstruction, it's like, oh yeah, that's my probabilistic representation of the picture of the probabilistic representation of the picture of Prince. It's like, oh, okay. I guess that's what those 1,000 numbers mean, right? And then that's how this all breaks down and what is actually happening within this process. You're not ever storing the information directly. Yeah, you're reading, right? You are. It's going through the eyeballs. And then if anyone ever tries to make that argument, you've copyrighted yourself from being able to read a book, which will never happen, right? And then so that's why this law is and why the laws are so careful around this, right? If the laws they were just boom immediately sided with the AI companies or against the AI companies, like you would not want that world. Like there's nothing would be uncopyrightable. You couldn't read a book. You couldn't go to the library and check out a book. That would be copyright infringement. And then so that's like sets bad precedent within that. And then so this is the technology within this and what it's enabling. And then so within that, this opens up a lot of discussions and arguments, right? To me, the bottom line argument and the one that I've been like honestly chasing like from understanding of this and then from the very first time that I understand this equation is, why does this equation work? Rather than like getting mad or like, man, this is like getting mad over the copyright issue, like why, like it's interesting that this scientifically works, right? And then once you break that down and you start cracking that egg apart and peeling that egg apart, the like more and more like scientifically, my hypothesis flat out within this is that it's not like all data is like synthetic. That there is no actual like scientific differentiation between synthetic and real data. And then so that's like that gets into secondary arguments within this, right? So even you can knock out all of these like the upfront arguments, which are the strongest legal arguments, which no like there's not a lawyer on the planet that has been able to get through that top layer yet, because like, you haven't seen a single AI company get through that, right? They haven't lost any case. But even if you got through that top layer, I still have a bottom layer of scientific arguments, which are essentially that copyright overall shouldn't exist under the physics framework that we're peeling back more and more. And then again, you can agree or disagree with those argumentations and agree or disagree with the morality of those arguments overall, but from a legal standpoint, that's what is happening. And there's no kind of stopping this overall, right? It's like the bottom line and the hardest truth within this. At the end of the day, like my mindset is always like I default to realism within these things, right? Like I would want a perfect world of unicorns and ponies and everything being a utopia, but that's not the world that we live in. We live in the world of physics and of people and humanity, and dealing with all of those complex situations and scenarios and navigating them as we do. I don't make the rules. I didn't make these laws. I'm just following the laws as written, right? As everyone else. And then so hopefully this gives you a further, like deeper understanding of this, like a scientific understanding is what I want to impart within this, right? Like if you can scientifically pick apart my argument here, especially like the fact that it's not directly storing information database wise, you've done a huge service honestly to a bunch of like artists, everyone else, like writers, etc. within this. Like if you can like legally debunk my arguments, please do. You're doing it's a huge like again, like I'm separating the morality from this overall, right? Do I think I would rather a world exist where copyright is enforceable. This is the data points that I have at the moment. So, and this is what I work with. This is what the AI companies work with. Just laying out these arguments for you, right? Like I'm just like, this is what's actually going on. This is what's happening. These are the arguments that people are relying on. And then getting mad at it doesn't do anything. Understanding it is the way around it. So there you go. If you like this type of content, please like and subscribe. Thank you very much.